Hello there, I'm John, and in this video, I'm going to be sharing how I put on 50 pounds of muscle naturally in 3 years with a method called test maxing that doesn't include peptides, precursors, potions, pills, or supplements of any kind. Although I did use magnesium and vitamin D, if you want to count those, I count those as like dietary supplements. However, part of the reason I'm making the video, and the other thing, I use test maxing to get my testosterone levels to over 1,500 nanograms per deciliter 100% naturally. And normally you only see that from people who take exogenous testosterone, but I was able to do it naturally because I figured out test maxing. Now, why didn't I share this sooner? Well, the reason I'm sharing it now is because I keep putting off sharing my stuff, and I see people who are blatantly lying to their audience, people who are just spreading pure misinformation, people who aren't that accomplished, people who are just like I said, blatantly just taking drugs to get their results. And I would like to contribute to the collective consciousness in this way. And I held off on posting for a while because I had a bunch of tics, like Tourette's tics, from when I was a kid that I have thankfully addressed largely with some like spiritual healing in the past year. But on the rise of me building all that muscle, I wasn't able to push it as much as I wanted to in the weight room, and because like my arm would be like twisting out while I was doing every movement. I had certain like tics with my back, and then my tibia. So like I didn't really feel safe squatting like 400 pounds when like my tibia is like twisting out without my consent. Tics are really really mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausting. If you don't know anyone who has had to deal with them, they're not fun at all. So that's why I didn't really post sooner. And now they're getting better, and I will be pushing again. But I really want to share my story and how you guys can add a bunch of muscle naturally as well. And the first step is just going to be telling you about how, along with the tics, which came from like a highly stressful childhood, I had a big fear around getting fat, which led to fear based eating and erratic beliefs around eating, which weren't based in truth or logic or any purpose or intention. So, I when everybody else started growing when I was like, 10 and 12, I stayed the same because I had these issues. I was scared to eat, especially animal products. So I looked, the same until I was like 16. And then I started eating more like protein powder because I thought that was an okay protein source when I was swimming. And I actually got like pretty good sleep my sophomore year. I was terrible at sleeping after I had tics. Like my whole life turned around. But like that one summer, I remember like everything was fine, and I slept like went to bed right at 9 every night for like 3 or 4 months straight and grew 4 inches. It was wonderful. But then I went back to some old behaviors. But that's besides the point. So I kind of started to masculinize, not even masculinize, but like my face changed at 16 a little bit, and then just stayed the same until I was 18. I felt like I still looked, underdeveloped, and then 20 came around, and this is when COVID hit. I'm a 2000s baby. COVID hit, and I'd been making up for my bad hormones. By the way, I gone to a doctor when I was 18, and they just told me I needed TRT, which is really really surprising because there's no reason an 18 or 20-year-old should ever be prescribed TRT. Like that's when you should be making the most amount of testosterone. But I was critically low, and even at the age of 20, I was still dealing with those like eating beliefs, and so I wasn't getting the nutrition I needed to masculinize. So my voice was still lighter. I was very insecure. I didn't have as deep of a voice. I think I said my shoulders were a lot narrower. My face was completely different, and I actually got very very self conscious of that. But it wasn't until COVID hit and I started to deal with other issues. Where I used to be a swimmer, so I would make up for the horrible diet and hormones with just excess cardio, which just raised my cortisol and made me even more anxious and like higher pitched. So when COVID hit, I packed on like 20 pounds out of the blue in like 2 months. Even though I was still doing cardio and training every day, it wasn't as much volume. Obviously, I was swimming in the ocean for like 30-ish minutes a day, and I'm coming off of like 2 hour swim practices. So obviously there's a difference there. However, I just got like fat super fast, and I really wasn't I was eating less, which was really really weird. But yeah, I felt horrible about how I looked and felt. I ended up booking a call with Greg Doucette, actually. Amazing man, wonderful man. Um, absolutely love what he's done to the online fitness space. And he gave me some advice on how to like lose weight over time. You know, just basic stuff where you, but I mean everything just comes down to basics really when it comes to training, where you know you figure out your how much food you're eating and how much you check that out for a week, and then you adjust your diet accordingly to gain or lose weight, or you know titrate up cardio. It's really really simple, and he just kind of laid it out for me, and I followed that and made some progress over the summer. But once I lost like 5 or 10 pounds, but once I started gaining it back, and I was still dealing with all my other issues, and it wasn't until you know like college started in the fall, and I started swimming again, where I started like wanting to eat more because I had to perform better, but it wasn't like before for some reason. I started just eating more to perform, and I ended up packing on like another 15 pounds. So I went from like 175 ish to 205 in like 8ish months, and I felt horrible about myself and my voice, and I was very very tired at this point of feeling fat. So I went on a very drastic cut, and I know Greg Doucette or anyone really wouldn't advocate for this unless you want extreme like fat loss. So I went from eating like 4,500 to 5,000 calories a day, um, cut it down to like 2,500 to 3,000, and then I also like upped the cardio. So I was exhausted, but within 12 weeks I lost like 30 pounds, which is really really fast. I never recommend anybody ever tries to lose 30 pounds in 3 months. That is way too fast, even for that body weight. But I got like pretty lean at 175 again, which I was happy with. But and obviously, when you go through a cut that drastic, you're gonna have some side effects. But more than ever, I was having issues that were highly linked to low testosterone, which was obviously like the delayed puberty, or voice is still higher by default. The face hadn't broadened. My face has gotten a lot broader these past couple years, and so has my jaw. It's like the trip. My shoulders hadn't developed. My neck hadn't developed. I didn't feel confident at all. And I remember I just like was getting smoked in practice, obviously because of the low energy levels. But even when I started like eating more calories, I still felt like garbage. And I remember like not having even like I didn't have an erection for like a month, and I was like, okay, I gotta like change this up. I can't just like starve myself to be lean, and I'm really really tired of feeling like I'm not developing like I should. And this is at 20, right? Like let's like right before I turned 21. That's a pretty like late intervention at that point, but I didn't really have anyone to help me grow up. So if this video can help you at all, like I'm very happy if it does that, or that it does that. And so I start just reading and listening to as much information as I could on how to fix testosterone. I eventually got to Stan Efferding's work, who I highly, highly recommend. Probably one of the best coaches out there in terms of wisdom and programming. The movement stuff, I don't like the Stu McGill stuff. I like if you want to like really optimize movement, go down the PRI, Pat Davidson, Bill Hartman rabbit hole. But pretty much everything else, like Stan is amazing at. And he kind of opened my eyes to the how do I say this? To the impact of micronutrients on diet or in your diet, on your hormones, your energy levels, et cetera, et cetera. And that should be pretty like obvious if you know anything about nutrition. But again, I was just kind of getting started. And as over time, like my understanding of, over time, your understanding of everything evolves and changes. Now it's a bit different than it used to be, but I started implementing stuff from the vertical diet, and like the psychology of high testosterone, patterns I saw in people who had levels that I wanted, who had the performance that I wanted. Like having higher testosterone comes down to like a few key things, but let's get back to the story. So I changed my entire diet around based around all the information that I consumed. It was I started eating red meat, rice, eggs less frequently, but lots of yogurt, lots of berries, lots of fruit, and plenty of carbs multiple times a day, every single day, and like for a healthier calorie allotment, just like same type of calorie allotment that I would want to be like a healthy performance consumption for, but entirely based around more micronutrient dense foods. And within a few days, like I was getting erections again. I had more energy than ever. But what really surprised me is that within 6 months, where I titrated up the food a little bit, but not by that much, I ended up gaining 20 pounds lean, which was really shocking looking back. Like that's really impressive. And more importantly, my face changed, my voice changed. I started to develop shoulders and traps, which had never really developed on me before. I had started to masculinize, and I was getting attention from women in a way I hadn't gotten it before because of these like secondary male sex characteristics that I had started to develop as a result of having a diet model and lifestyle, which were helping me have higher testosterone. So I changed around my training, my sleep, everything to have higher testosterone. I basically trained with that intent, and it worked really well. I was actually really surprised. So I might be putting pictures on this when I edit it. I don't know, but I was really happy with that. So then I swam that season, ended up having to drop out when I got injured, got some financial stress. As I like rehab my injury and kind of work through some issues, that next year I kind of just like stayed in the gym, and I did get up to like 205 again, 210, but like not nearly as like, I was not chubby. I was just like a little fluffy. And I don't mean like even fluffy. There's like, I had a little bit of fat. And then what happened? I went to door-to-door sales, but that was so energy consumptive that over like 6 to 8 months, I just accidentally cut down to 195, and I was like a peeled 195. And that was crazy. So from there, I decided I was going to put on more muscle. So from summer of 23 to what was like February-ish of 24, I ended up putting on another 20 pounds, mostly lean. After that, I got up to about 220, just as lean, and that's how I went from about 170-ish to about 220-ish, between like 170, 175 to 220, 225, because you know how weight fluctuates, in about 3 years. So 2021 to 2024, I gained 50 pounds. And honestly, like my entire life has changed. Not just from a muscularity standpoint, but from a confidence standpoint, from how my face looks, how I feel, to how my voice sounds, to how I think even. So testosterone, like all hormones, signals, they all signal information. And information doesn't just affect us physically. It also affects us on every level, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Having higher testosterone naturally, and it's not just testosterone, but like I should say having higher androgen production inside your body will change your entire life, especially if you're doing it endogenously and you're living a lifestyle that is congruent with producing higher levels of androgens. So, ta-da, here I am, 50 pounds heavier, thicker neck, thicker voice, and I'm going to lay out exactly what you need to be doing in order to have higher testosterone naturally. This is the high testosterone playbook, if you will. So get out a pen and paper and write it down. I like to say there are three main parts. There's your mindset, your lifestyle, and then your environment. So let's break down the mindset. You need to have a purpose, a vision, something that you're working towards, that you are in all areas of life, that you're focused on getting done every single day. So this is a vision of being like a big jack dude, for instance. You need to focus on the long-term route to getting there. Remember, anytime you take the shortcut way, you deal with the opportunity cost of not making progress on the longer term way, which is always the best way, because that's where you start to get compounding interest. So the way I figured that out was, you do all these like stupid diets that don't really work or aren't based in fundamental principles of progressing or fueling yourself in the gym to kind of like look good and lean all the time, but you don't actually make the progress you want with your muscularity. So you go from like, 3 months on this diet, 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 and none of them work. They're not actually good. But if you just, ate, and I'll get to the diet in a second, but like ate the Test Maxer diet for a whole year, you'd actually make progress for a whole year with your muscularity or your physique or whatever. And that's a whole year of progress you would have missed out on if you keep taking the short-term route. It's the same thing as like messing around with a bunch of girls you don't intend on marrying. Every day or month or whatever you spend with someone that you don't intend on marrying is a month you missed out on, working on yourself, or that you could have spent with your wife. So just always take the long-term option, and remember that if this is something that you want to do and you want to have high testosterone, which if you're a man and you're producing testosterone, you should be living a life that's conducive to having it. Like you can have higher, you're going to produce testosterone. Do you want it to be higher or lower? You're going to take action on having high testosterone or not? Now, this is going to be in line with your like entire life. You have to figure out why being more masculine, high testosterone man with bigger muscles, with more endurance, with more strength, et cetera, helps you live your life in a better way. And I don't know what your why is in life. I don't know what you're living for, but you have to figure that out so you have a reason to get up out of bed every single day. Now, it might not be my reason, which was to move forward in the gym as much as possible and make the most progress I could at the time. And it might not be your reason of fixing delayed puberty, but you have a something that is important to you, and having higher testosterone, developing yourself physically, and then mentally and spiritually will always help you accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. Strength is never a weakness, and weakness is never a strength. I think that's a Mark Bell quote. So have a purpose, and then you want to live a competitive lifestyle. Now, this isn't like domineering competition. This is just like good old go get 'em competitiveness that has been frowned upon in men for decades now. There's definitely an agenda against men being competitive and confrontational and even aggressive, but these are good things. Like there's nothing wrong with those things. The only people who shy away from those things are weak people. So have something you're going for, especially if you can be competitive with other men. Be competitive with other men. If it has to come down to playing a sport, then do it. But if you can, find that competitiveness in a purpose, a career, or mission, and you get to go hard at it every single day with the hopes of winning, especially competing to win is important for having higher testosterone. It's ingrained in us biologically even neurologically to be seeking status in social hierarchies. And men love to compete for status because it gets them more opportunities with women and just better success in life, right? And so it's a very natural thing, and you should be competing to win as much as you can. And in line with higher levels of competition, increasing testosterone, you have increased effort, increasing testosterone. Like try as hard as you can every single day. And this is also a personal development thing. Like why wouldn't you try as hard on everything that you do, like all the time? Like why wouldn't you give your all on everything you do all the time? That's really what most people are missing out at in life, and why people feel like they're not making the progress they want to, is they're not doing everything they can. And that's really what everybody's missing out on. You're not gonna have to worry about what you're doing with your life if you're doing everything you can do, if you're giving all you can give. And so compete, work as hard as you can, put as much effort into it as you can. Then, of course, comes focus, discipline, which are very, very similar. But you need to stay focused. And this is the whole system is integrative between the training and the environment, or the lifestyle and the environment. But you are not going to get to where you want to go unless you stay focused on the actions that actually move you forward in reality to get you to where you want to go. So you're not going to be like jacked if you're not eating, sleeping, and training. You're not going to be high testosterone if you're not, living the lifestyle, having the mindset, and the environment. So you need to stay focused on staying in line. And then discipline is kind of the other half of that coin, which is, saying no to things that interfere with your vision, the thing that you're striving for. Then in this case, it goes hand in hand with having higher testosterone. So discipline yourself. Say no to things that are bad for your testosterone in your life. Stay focused on the things that move you forward. Now, number 2 is going to be your lifestyle. So, your tribe, time outside, living a competitive lifestyle, your training, your eating, and your sleep. The most important ones are going to be sleep, training, and nutrition for your performance in the gym, for your physique, but also for having higher testosterone. And if you're having like extremely high tests as a natty, it's going to help you build more muscle. So sleep, very, very important. The simplest system you can create for having better sleep is really just have a set bedtime, right? You can do your blue light blocking and your pre-sleep rituals and all that, but if you have a bedtime that you are consistent with, that your body knows is the time to shut down at, that's going to work wonders for you. Now, some other things you can do to have better sleep are going to be having a cold, quiet, dark room. As you can see here, I have these. You can see that one over there. I have these blackout curtains. When it is dark, I unplug the light in the wall, and then I go to bed. There is no light in my room. It generally stays cool in here, so I don't need to worry about that, and there's no fans or anything going. So when I fall asleep, it's actually very easy. Some other great things you can do to go to bed really come down to your mind and your body. So for your body, you can take a magnesium supplement, and then to relax your body further, you can take a hot shower or a hot bath. The heat will help you relax, which is important. Something you can do to take your mind off of things, if you have a busy mind that likes to be active when you go to bed, I know I do, is going to be making sure you get done everything you needed to this is the biggest one for men. Get done everything you needed to that day. So you're not thinking about whether or not you did enough. You're not having stray thoughts or, remembering things right as you fall asleep that you should have gotten done. Be responsible. Get your stuff done during the day so you're not regretting and lamenting at night. Just stay focused. Have a to-do list and check it for your life, and check off the boxes every day before you hit the bed. Some other good practices are going to be journaling, some self-reflection on the day. What did I learn? What could I do better tomorrow? Then meditation goes a long way. You don't even have to be a regular practitioner. You could just try to get to the point that your mind is quiet, or your attention isn't captured by your mind. And then, really good one that I love is reading fiction. If you can get your mind on another world, all your other problems are going to kind of dissipate, and you're not going to think about your life. This doesn't mean that you escape your life in order to go to bed. Like, you should have your life in order and do what you need to. But if you have a busy mind and you're, I don't know, just compulsively thinking, just read some fiction. Now, nutrition is actually super simple. Eat real food, like plants and animals from the earth. That's one of the simplest things you can do to just be healthier. If you're eating, and this is like the high testosterone food list though, like red meat, eggs, dairy, potatoes, fruits, and then depends how you cook the veggies, but I like a lot of root vegetables and tubers. If you eat just those foods, you'll be more jacked, lean, happy, and energetic than 99% of the population. If I would recommend, what I do is have red meat and eggs at most meals. Not always eggs, but I always have red meat at every meal. I actually recommend potatoes over rice, but rice is much easier to cook, so you want to make sure you're having protein, fat, and carbs at every meal. Now, fat isn't. You don't need as much fat as these keto dudes and these carnivore dudes say you do. You do not need butter with your meals. You don't even need avocados with your meals. If you're having red meat, like lean ground beef, and eggs at every meal, you probably are having enough fat. There's plenty of fat and cholesterol in eggs. Cholesterol is what your body uses to make testosterone. And then there's I mean, generally, you just don't want to be nutrient deficient. Like obviously there's stuff that directly increases testosterone in red meat and eggs. Oh, and things like oysters are actually really, really good. I just started having boxed or like those canned oysters, smoked oysters. Like ideally, like fresh oysters are the best, and I can get them, but only on the weekends. So compromise. But oysters are really good because they have a lot of zinc, helps your egg cells, da 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 da. But yeah, red meat, eggs, oysters, dairy, potatoes, and other roots and tubers, and then plenty. I like very high vitamin C, high water fruits. Watermelons and oranges are staples for me. And if what's another one I would eat a lot more of? I would eat so many blackberries if it wasn't, well, I mean, I would eat blackberries if they weren't like $30 for a tiny little carton where I'm at. That's part of the reason I want to be wealthy is so I can just eat blackberries all the time. You know how cool that would be to drink blackberry juice? I don't even know if they make that. Is that something just for like the uber wealthy? Oh, here's this like $500 glass of blackberry juice. That would be so cool. Someone should do that. Maybe I should do that. If I sold blackberry juice, would you drink it? I don't know. Now, back to business. Training. Okay, most people are just giant wusses when it comes to training. Train your butt off. Train extremely hard. That's like the number one repeatable pattern with people who have muscle and the physiques you want is they're just training extremely hard, and they probably like to train extremely hard. If you get to the point that effort is extremely gratifying, you will have higher testosterone. And when you have higher testosterone, effort becomes even more gratifying. So try extremely hard. Put as much effort into training as you possibly can. You don't need to worry about stability or instability. Just pick the exercises that people who look like you want to look have been doing for decades at this point. Squats, hinges, bench, overhead press, pull-ups, rows, dips, curls, calf raises, hamstring curls, leg extensions, tricep extensions, sit-ups, leg raises, twists, side bends, back extensions, like all these great exercises. You don't need to worry about line of pull or anything. Like you just need to pick simple exercises and get stronger at them. And whatever muscles you use to perform the movement that you're doing is going to grow. As long as you're getting stronger, you're eating enough, and you're not being silly, like you'll grow. Just kind of how it works. But you got to train hard, and you got to train a lot, and you got to be intentional. So, and then on top of that, you need to be doing cardio. It's become like there are so many people who aren't doing cardio with their weight training when really you need to be doing cardio to be healthy. You don't have to just be doing like slow runs on the treadmill or on the bike in the gym. Like that's so boring. That's so boring, and I think that's part of the reason most people hate cardio. Make cardio something exciting. Like go play tag with your friends. That would be for like an hour or an hour and a half. That would be a really good source of cardio. If you do free running or you do parkour, that'd be great. I still recommend, like some runs throughout the week. Like I do a couple long runs throughout the week just because it does give me a better base, and I want that for my goals. However, I'm saying that if you're so unable to discipline your mind and you just want something to be engaged with what the cardio that you're doing, like pick a fighting sport, do free running or run in nature. I find that much more relaxing and stimulating and less off-putting than like running in a gym. So make sure you're doing cardio. If you're even doing 3 hours a week, that's going to have extreme health benefits. But I would recommend something like 5 hours a week. And no, 10,000 steps a day is great, but it's not actually cardio. Like Michael Phelps did not do 10,000 steps a day to train for the Olympics. Like he trained extremely hard. He trained until he puked frequently. And I recommend you do the same with cardio. But most people don't know what that intensity is like. Like train until you don't have to always do that with cardio. Like VO2 max can be really like a volume game, but you should push yourself aerobically, and that will help you with your weight training. It'll help you burn more calories, so you get more nutrients in, so you can actually get more food in and stay lean, which is actually better for your health. Now, it's like if you're a 130-pound person and you're doing, you know, you're not doing cardio, it's going to be very hard to eat enough food. This is another thing, like when it comes to testosterone. If you're not eating enough food, you will your body will definitely downregulate testosterone production because it's more like a thrive and not survive hormone, but it helps you in areas of survival and replication directly. But if you're not eating enough, your body will stop making so much of it. So a good way to have higher testosterone, or to get enough food to have higher testosterone while you weigh less, is just to do more cardio. And that's a large part of why I was able to make the progress it is, because I was swimming, 15 hours a week. So I was eating a lot. So I got a lot of nutrients over a large calorie span that let me have higher testosterone. So weight training, some kind of sport, cardio on a regular basis, that's a good training. I covered sleep, training, nutrition, play sport of some kind, or some kind of athletic competitive endeavor. You could do. As I get older, I realize that I'm doing jiu-jitsu now, but you need to learn how to fight if you're a dude. And every dude would be better off if they knew how to fight. You'd have much more confidence. You'd have much more presence. You'd feel much more relaxed in every situation. And you'd actually have way more fun. There's a special bond you get with dudes you fight with. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in other sports, but it's very, very special. Men aren't happy unless they're fighting. There's some spiritual stuff behind that, and that we need to be pushing our boundaries and, risking death, spiritually and psychically, but also physically. And until you get humbled on the mat, you really, you kind of be like anxious all the time. So I recommend you learn how to fight, and it's a great way to drive up testosterone, competing with other men, but also develop a very useful life skill. In case someone were to start an altercation, you might have a skill set that could help yourself. And then getting enough sunlight. We could talk about light environments all day, but the sun is something we've co-evolved with, that these cells in our body require nutrients from. And I'm not just talking like nutrients from the sun. Remember how I said like all nutrients are information? Well, information is transmitted energetically. There's energetic information signaling that goes on from hormones, from nutrients that you eat, that gives your body certain information to perform certain tasks or express certain genes. Cool on that. The sun is the exact same thing. You just have energy coming in the form of light, and that also signals certain things to your body. The blue light that comes in when the sun rises, the blue-yellow light, signals to your body that it's time to wake up. It says that this is the time we get up, and then the blue light throughout the day basically says like, yeah, stay awake, and it's healthy to get it because it's coming from a full visible spectrum of light. And then when you're going to bed, the sun goes down, it's like a nice warm orange color, and that signals to your brain that it's time to go to bed, right? Start producing melatonin. But you need to be getting these from the sun, because light, like most things, works synergistically. Like you can't just have one wavelength of light and forget all the rest. And then we get into like light environments, and that's why blue light is so toxic, is because we get this very high frequency light all on its own, and it's not in synergy with all these different light wavelengths that come in. So get sunlight. It's critical for vitamin D production and testosterone production. And then just spend more time in nature. Your nervous system will be much more calm. It'll be easier to get into a parasympathetic state, which is, less fight or flight, less cortisol. If you are around plants, you can see these rose bushes outside my window, but they're not the ones I normally use. I have some snake plants in my bathroom. I have a garden outside. I walk in nature all the time. Very important. I think that's everything on that note. And then the last thing is going to be environment. So this is just creating your environment so that it's easier to take the actions and adhere to the lifestyle. Oh, the other one on lifestyle before I get into that, it would just be avoiding vices. So if you're staying out late partying, if you're drinking at the club, if you're drinking alcohol at all, if you're taking any sort of substances, these things are all going to hurt your testosterone. If you're getting poor sleep, if you're taking like alcohol directly decreases your testosterone. So it's actually horrible for you to have alcohol. Just so you know. And I don't drink alcohol at all. And I don't recommend anyone ever does. It's probably the worst thing you can consume for it's like the worst thing you can consume. So don't have alcohol. Don't stay out late partying. Don't do drugs or, substances. Don't be don't just get lost in vices or distract yourself. Like, keep moving forward in life and live a good life with friends. Spend time doing things with friends. Don't get lost on the wrong path. And then environment is just going to be creating your environment to help you have higher testosterone. So this is twofold. Or threefold. Filling your environment with information that makes it easier for you to hit your goals. So if your environment is filled with, anime, maybe not anime, but like pictures of people who are doing things you don't want to do. If you're following people on social media who, don't go to the gym and all they post about is drinking, you should probably avoid that type of information. If you have, symbols of weed or alcohol in your room or bottles, you should get rid of those. If you listen to music that talks about drinking and other things, stop listening to that and instead listen to information that aligns with you doing the things that you want. So that's curating your environment to be more informationally friendly. So it's not in your attention and you get things in your attention that do help you with your goals. And then the second one is going to be just creating your environment to make taking those actions easier. So for your diet, buying the right food, getting rid of all the bad food, replacing it with good food. Sorry, one of the things of lifestyle is like not eating junk food, but don't eat junk food. There you go. Get rid of all the junk food in your house. Don't buy Doritos or cookies or Oreos or any of that. Just buy only healthy food and then cook it and meal prep it so you always have healthy meals to eat. And so when you go out, that's one of like the number one things that predicts whether or not you'll success with your diet is just meal prep. So prep your meals. There you go. Prep your meals. Make sure you have clean gym clothes so you can go to the gym. Pick a gym that's makes it easier to go to the gym on your way home from work or on your way to work. And the last one is going to be removing like endocrine disrupting chemicals from your environment. Now, some people think this is super silly, but there is stuff in the public water supply that is turning male frogs into female frogs. Should you worry about this if you're not eating, sleeping, or training? No, but it does make a difference. So get things like glass water bottles instead of plastic ones, glass Tupperware instead of plastic. Buy a shower filter, a reverse osmosis water filter, an air filter, snake plants. Ditch the polyester clothes. Ditch the like super intense industrial cleaners in your soaps because that strips your skin and certain nutrients in it and does affect your hormonal profile. So this is just going down the rabbit hole of doing everything you can to help your health. So I actually have some LEDs in my apartment that I use sometimes during the day, but in general, you should avoid using LEDs because, like I said, they only they veer more towards the blue and yellow light side of the light spectrum, which in conjunction with other lights isn't that bad, but all on its own, it's kind of stressful for the body. Like normally I spend my time outside. I just needed to charge my laptop while I was filming this, and I didn't want it to be like entirely dark. So I swear I follow this stuff. Now where else am I going? That's pretty much it. But this is the whole thing that helped me have higher testosterone. I was very, very diligent with this for a long time, and I continue to be as I try to make my own progress with my tics and fixing my movement. So, and actually learn to use my body better. So If you have any questions, comment them down below. If you think this is a bunch of baloney, I assure you it's not. And if you want coaching or consulting, or you want to help having higher testosterone naturally, kind of like I did, you can just shoot me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing what you guys think. And if you like the video and it works out for you, be sure to subscribe. Thank you.